Hello, hi, we're OMIMEDS, and we are developing medication reconciliation. So medication reconciliation, that's the process of comparing the medication order to the other medications that a patient is taking. For the chronic patient who's transitioned between many caregivers, this is a huge challenge to the caregivers themselves. Our system is just not facilitating the communication that's needed for two doctors to coordinate their meds, or for hospitals and doctors to coordinate meds. And so when that happens, duplications occur, drug-drug interactions occur, omissions occur, dosing errors occur, and that's a significant impact. Now, there are many products to date that try to solve this, but at the end of the day, they all require one thing, which is that the patient or the caregiver manually input all of the medications into some sort of database and have that tracked. They also have the discipline that anytime medication change, also go in manually and track that as well. Now, we believe that we are providing a solution that greatly simplifies medication reconciliation. And this is based on all of our years in healthcare. So Dr. Jean Spiritu last served as Chief Medical Officer for UCI Irvine Medical Center, before that head of quality for St. Joe and Orange, and founded a large healthcare practice. Dan Ross dedicated his career to improving efficacy and quality, safety for pharmacies and hospitals. I have 15 years of experience in the healthcare field. I founded and funded and grew and ran a startup, and I also ran strategy for a $450 million business that sells directly to hospitals. And so the neat part is every time a patient fulfills a prescription, either at Walgreens or by mail, or anytime, that record is already there in an online, sitting and accessible to the patient. So our solution begins by asking permission from the patients to access that record, and then just like mint.com, if you know that financial service thing, we aggregate it into our website that is now available to all of the caregivers for that patient. We don't have to have any relationships with Walgreens and all of that, just like mint.com. We pull it directly from the online databases with patient permission. Now, the business model is that the people that are on the hook to provide good medication reconciliation will be the one paying for this. So these are hospitals that need to get the medication when the patient is admitted and also at discharge. These would be the primary care, physicians that have a lot of trouble with their staff trying to get this right, and ultimately insurance companies and employers as well. So this is what a patient gets when they get released from the hospital. Now, other than the fact that it's overwhelming and may contain errors, it doesn't get to the doctor in time, and doctors simply don't have the staff to reconcile those types of medications correctly. Now with our system, when the patient actually comes in to the doctor after a hospital visit, once they refill the prescription, they give them a little key tag, even without a password, and the doctor, the caregiver, can immediately see what medications they filled, any interactions, any contraindications, so immediately you can have the right knowledge. Also, something that's very useful in terms of emergencies. Many times the patient comes in and the tech at the ambulance asks them, okay, so what medications are you on? And the patient just doesn't know. So with this key tag, it just says, hey doctor, just scan my card, and you'll be able to see that. Another benefit that we provide the doctors is that we can really help have the patient and the doctors have an intelligent conversation. And so we can also brand it as the doctor. And we really believe that this will improve. The coolest thing about it is once you have good medication reconciliation, you can build an entire suite of medication management tools. So we do this even if the pharmacist at the last moment replaced a generic brand for a generic, we can provide the patient with that. And so ultimately I think that we will have a consumer-facing free version of this sponsored by member organizations. In terms of a investment opportunity, I'm a medical device guy, and I really believe that health services is where it's at over the next few years. This really looks at the California market only. We have the team to sell to hospitals as well as the other forms of revenues there, and of course a national scale-up would increase those numbers by orders of magnitude. All right. Thank you.
Again, again, we'll look to our panel for that one question that would decide. Kurt, Best Buy's turning into this health side of things. What would be your question to ask me?
Well, I guess I have one comment and one question. My comment is, I'm not sure, it sounds like you're trying to do two different things, right? And I think you should get clear on whether this is a B2B play for providers or this is a consumer play. I think I was actually more excited when it was a consumer play. Because here's why, based on my question. You know, now that all providers have the mandate to have electronic medical records, transitioned by what, 2014, 2015, I'm trying to figure out, or if you can explain to me, is this solving a problem that's going to solve itself? Because I think when everyone gets electronic, that's going to make the facilitation and the consolidation of the records be easier. And so I'm not sure that your business model is valid in that changing technology type.
Sure. So thank you for this question. It's actually going to be better for us for when it's there's electronic medical records, because there's one thing about having electronic medical records for internally for the physician, and then having an entire ecosystem of physicians, pharmacies, hospitals, EMS, and caregivers all working on the exact same protocol with absolute transparency. And that's not going to happen over the next 5 years. That doesn't even happen in the UK, where there's national health systems. Even over there, there's 18 different electronic records. It'll be actually better for us than for the customers. And it is at first a B2B play. We're not presuming on cracking the code for how to sell to consumers. I sold to hospitals for 4 years. Gene has access to every hospital in California. We know what hospitals want. At first, definitely, this is a B2B play for providers. It would be great if the patient can go in and scan his card rather than a doctor has to do it over the iPhone. He would just put it at a kiosk, and that would go immediately into the medical record. That would make life easier for us. But the basic need of coordinating all of the care on all of the different doctors with all of their different electronic medical records, that's not going to change over the next 10 years, even with health reform.
Ideally, a patient with heart failure would be monitored by their primary care physician and only go to the hospital if their condition gets severely worse. However, 70% of heart failure hospitalizations come through the emergency room. And what's even more surprising is that 1/4 of these patients will be back in the hospital just 30 days later. And this leads to a lot of costs. In fact, the US spends $40 billion a year on heart failure, and it leads to 1.1 million hospitalizations. And if you look at the hospitalizations, more than 1/3 are accounted for by readmissions. And we had a key insight, was that fluid is really the kind of determining factor and determining cause for patients that are getting readmitted for heart failure. So a typical heart failure will be discharged from the hospital, they will go home and fluid begins to slowly accumulate in their lungs over a period of time, at which point they get to start to feel eventually some shortness of breath, and then they go to the hospital, the fluids are removed through the use of diuretics. So we saw a need as a way to detect fluid in the lungs of patients with heart failure in order to prevent re-hospitalizations. And the solution is a fluid monitoring patch called Archimedes. Archimedes is wearable, it's non-invasive, and it adheres to the patient for up to 30 days after they're discharged from the hospital. The device is placed right on the chest, and it uses ultrasound to detect accurately the amount of fluid in a patient's lungs. So you're probably asking, why is this going to work? Well, for the last 10 years, physicians both in Europe and the United States have been using ultrasound artifacts as an indicator for fluid status in the emergency room. And you can see some of these artifacts right here. They appear as solid white stripes that streak down the image. And essentially, this means that there's fluid in the intralobular spaces of the lungs. It's been written in a lot of different places and studied well, but it's easily detected, and actually the number of these artifacts correlates very strongly with the amount of fluid in the patient's lungs. And so we're really based on the fact that you can detect fluid in the lungs before you actually feel symptoms. Studies have shown that you can detect fluid for 15 days, a mean of 15 days before a patient actually feels any shortness of breath. And that means that if you have plenty of time to actually intervene, if you can detect this accumulation of fluid at an early enough stage. So here's a chance for me to take my shirt off for you guys. But, one thing about our device that's unique is that although it's based on clinically validated measure, our device is based on a design that is wearable and provides constant patient monitoring at home. And one reason we think that nobody's thought of this before is that actually, because if you were to use a standard piezoelectric ultrasound probe, it would be far too bulky and large to put on an ultrasound patch. So we actually incorporate a technology that was developed at Stanford that's a unique type of ultrasound called CMUTs. And CMUTs are small, they're cheap to manufacture, and you can kind of think of them as going from vacuum tubes to transistors. And they're already available, already being used in commercially available devices.
So in a nutshell, Archimedes is an early warning system. When the patient is discharged from the hospital, the physician places a patch on them and the fluid status is monitored. If the fluid increases, the patch detects that and it alerts the patient of their worsening condition. The patient will then have enough time to consult their care providers and change their treatment, such as changing their diuretic medications if necessary. So our target customer is the hospital. And hospitals with changes in healthcare reform and accountable care organizations are increasingly at risk for heart failure admissions. Looking at the cost of admissions and our target admission rate, we believe that we can charge, with $1,000 price tag, we can still save the hospital $920 per patient, giving us a total market size of $1.1 billion and cost savings of $1 billion. So our device is non-invasive and effective, unlike other competitors on the market. We have filed intellectual property, which we will license through Stanford, and our regulatory strategy, because it's non-invasive, will be a 510K. We believe that in 5 years we can reach cash flow break-even and achieve healthy margins of 80% and revenue of 45 million in 7 years, with only 5% penetration of this huge market. Our team has a lot of experience bringing new medical technologies to the market, as you can see here. And we have a seasoned team of advisors through Stanford's Valve Design program, including the pioneer of CMUT technologies. Thank you. We are Pontius Medical, and we are planning to empower heart failure patients by giving them better information about their condition. Thank you.
Okay, time for that one question. Jeff, perhaps you can ask Pontus your single question.
One question, yeah. So nice presentation. Thank you. You're aiming at a really important space and one that is we're really concerned about. I like a lot of what you said. One of the things though that I worry about is so a lot of the patients that we're talking about right now, particularly for this short run of kind of a business plan, are north of 65, well north of 65, and don't have a lot of technology in their life, and may not get this or may not operate it in the way that you foresee. So have you thought about actually getting into their home and operational for as long as you need it?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, and I think part of the idea is that it's sort of like set it and forget it. So you imagine the physician, because it's ultrasound-based, placement is actually very important. And based on predicates such as a similar company called iRhythm, which is looking at wireless EKG monitoring for a period of time, we plan to use the same adhesive-based technology to have it's like a Band-Aid that they wear, and then they don't think about it anymore. And then as it detects their fluid status, it doesn't need to be continuous, but just intermittent checking of their lungs. It then alerts them as necessary, either a text message. We thought about whether we also alert their family members or care providers, or if it just alarms on its own and tells them, like, this is serious. And so trying to just raise that awareness of their own condition, I think, is part of the problem. They oftentimes have increasing fluid, but they don't experience symptoms until it's too late and it just suddenly falls off a cliff. So really what we want to do is give them that time to be able to react, see their physician if necessary in the outpatient setting where it's low cost, and then make the changes necessary, if necessary, to their treatment. Great, thank you.
Is a biomedical startup which works in the cardiovascular field and develops medical device, non-invasive, for the early detection of cardiovascular risk. So cardiovascular disease kills more than accidents, ADS, and cancer together. And according to a recent report from the US government, it is also one of the main causes driving healthcare costs. So the only solution to this problem is prevention. Unfortunately, the way the cardiovascular risk is now evaluated is not effective. So, for example, look at Jim Fix. He was a marathoner, and he was in the low-class risk, but he died from a massive heart attack when he was 52. While in the opposite side, we see Winston Churchill, which was in the high-risk class, but he died at 89 years old. So this means that the classical risk factors are not enough for an effective prevention. We need an individual screening of the cardiovascular situation of each patient. So the main cause of cardiovascular disease is atherosclerosis. Here you see the schematization of how the atherosclerosis progressed with the time. And what is it available now on the market allows to measure the atherosclerosis only in the late stage of the atherosclerosis, which is deadly and costly clinical and symptomatic stage. So to solve this problem, we have to detect the atherosclerosis here in this moment, at the initial lesion. And KIPU is able to do this. So KIPU is able to measure different early parameters which are connected with the progress of the atherosclerosis. These parameters are the arterial function and structure, the cardiac force, and the arterial elasticity. And when these parameters decrease, it means that the atherosclerosis is in progress. So KIPU developed 3 different products for each one of these parameters, and altogether they made a kind of cardiovascular suite, which gives a new way, a new paradigm to give an individual screening of the cardiovascular system. So here, so the cardiovascular suite is composed of a computer which analyzes the data coming from the 3 different products, which are based on 2 patented technologies, and they were already tested by 24 research centers internationally. So with these devices, we have the early and precise information, and so this means that we can detect the individual risk. So the market opportunity is higher than $2 billion, and it is composed by researchers, clinical specialists, clinical practitioners, but also we can imagine home monitoring, pharmacy, and wellness market. So as a first strategy, KIPU will address researchers and innovators segment, and only in the second phase, KIPU will arrive to the clinical market. All of this will happen in Europe and in USA. So the main competitive advantage that KIPU has is, first of all, the possibility to integrate different parameters, so more than 3, while instead KIPU competitors are only single-based product company. And furthermore, KIPU products are easy to use. So KIPU was born a few months ago by electrical engineers, which are highly business-oriented, and especially Elisabetta Bianchini, which was also a colleague of mine in the Fulbright Best program here at Santa Clara University. And the scientific advisory board is composed of great opinion leaders in the cardiovascular field. So KIPU needs 2 rounds of investment. The first one, it is necessary in order to complete the R&D and the certification product of the first the certification process of the first product. And the second round, it is at the 3rd year, and it is 1.5 million in order to penetrate the clinical market. So thank you for your attention, and so this is where KIPU came from. So if I still have time, KIPU were recording devices that were using in the Inca Empire in order to detect important events and time. And someone also said that they are used to predict the future. So somehow this is what KIPU wants to do for the cardiovascular field.
Okay, our expert on knots is Andy. You can ask that one question.
That's nuts. I have no idea where to go with that. So fantastic presentation, thank you. You're hitting on some very important trends in terms of new diagnostics, personalized medicine, obviously heart disease, fantastic. My question has to do with the economics. By year 5, year 6, it actually looks like the business is slowing, and you have acceleration year 3, 4, and then it sort of plateaus, or at least it's sort of slowing in terms of the trajectory. So relative to the economics of the business, can you explain, outside of the research market, which initially it's going to be an interesting market to go after, but it's much small, when you go over the clinical market, what are the economics? Is it reimbursement? Is that a pocket? How are you addressing that? And how will you actually have a hockey stick as opposed to sort of a plateauing model?
Let's speak about the clinical market, but it is important to say that it is very important for people first to convince the researchers and the innovators that then we'll have to convince the clinicians. So after this will happen, we have to work in order to make the people products and the screening that people can do under the reimbursement process. One step after the other. So the evolution of the company will still have to be defined. So we are working still on this.
Our company to you with a 60-second video.
We're Clear Ear, and we're here to solve the earwax problem. Everyone produces earwax, but for 35 million Americans, their wax buildup is so large that it plugs the ear canal, causing symptoms such as hearing loss and ringing in their ears. To get treated today, these patients undergo a burdensome 45-minute procedure. The patient first puts on a drape as protection for the oncoming mess. A nurse then uses a syringe to shoot water into the ear canal, not only once, but 20 times. Worst of all, the nurse can't see where the water is going. This is a blind procedure, causing complication rates as high as 38%. If you're a nurse or a patient, would you want to go through this long, messy procedure? Enter Clear Ear. With our patent-pending earwax removal system, nurses can see into the ear canal while injecting water, thus avoiding complications like eardrum puncturing. The nurse only has to fill the water supply once, flip the on switch, and target the earwax. 10 minutes later, all the wax is collected in a disposable container. No messy cleanup. It's quicker, it's safer, it's easier. Happier nurse, happier patient. Clear Ear aims to deliver this solution to 350 million people suffering from earwax problems worldwide.
So here at Clear Ear, we're solving the earwax problem. Now, everyone has earwax, but for some patients, their earwax actually builds up into their ear canal until it forms a plug, as you see here. These patients are suffering from ringing in their ears, chronic cough, and hearing loss. As it turns out, the associated hearing loss can lead to social isolation, further reducing the quality of the patient's life. Earwax is a highly prevalent condition, affecting one out of three over the age of 45. This means 35 million Americans. And to put this in perspective, last year, over 4 times as many people went to their doctors seeking treatment for earwax than the flu. It's worth noting that a large segment of these patients are actually hearing aid users, and these are the ones that are more severely impacted because earwax is the #1 cause of hearing aid failure. As one of these patients today, treatment options are insufficient. In the home care setting, you can use earwax softeners and Q-tips, but these are extremely ineffective. In fact, Q-tips were the cause of over 20,000 eardrum perforations last year. Then there's the primary care setting, where a procedure called irrigation is done. And as you saw from the video, this is a time-consuming, ineffective, and because it's a blind procedure, unsafe. There is the gold standard, which is the ENT office, but this requires the use of a $10,000 microscope, and it's a very high-cost setting to be doing this procedure. So there is a need to improve the standard of care in the primary care setting where the majority of procedures are done today. And Clear Ear has a solution that is safer, simpler, and speedier.
We have a product line based on the skill of the users, and they all use the same technology, which is the light travels through the material. So what it does for the user for the first time is that user gets illumination, magnification, and visualization all at the same time as the procedure is performed. Now this makes the procedure no longer blind, and so the procedure becomes safer. We have the nurse and the physician version already, and we've received positive feedbacks on that. We are currently working on the home care version, and what that will do is that will actually allow the boomer population to clean their ear regularly at home. So traditionally, a procedure that was done in a doctor's office can now, in future, be performed at home. Our model is a razor blade model. We have a non-disposable and a disposable unit. The non-disposable unit has a margin of around 86%, and disposable unit will have a margin of around 99%. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, our product will actually have a high, compelling value proposition for all the stakeholders, whether you are a patient or a primary care physician or the healthcare in general. We are improving the efficacy of the procedure, we are reducing the procedure time, making the procedure safer and reducing the complications, and hence reducing the overall cost for the system. This problem is a global problem, and it has a market of around $1 billion. And we have a straightforward strategy to build the market. We are a class 1 device, 510(k) exempt, and we do not need any clinical trials. We have an existing CBD code which we hope to leverage. The US as well as international utility patents have already been filed, and this actually is a platform technology for illuminating the other orifices of the body, which means for us that we will be able to develop future medical devices as well. We will be using contract manufacturers for production. Distribution is one of our biggest challenges. To mitigate that risk, we have decided to develop strategic relationships with companies like Balshalin, which are already in the similar space, and they have their global distribution networks already set up. And this is where we are heading. We are currently in the year 2 of our operations. We have already developed the 2 products, and we will be receiving our FDA clearance this year. We will be launching in the US market next year and subsequently in Europe and the international market. We require a total of $5 million to reach these milestones, and we will break even in year 4.
And we have an impressive advisory board of key opinion leaders as well as a range of expertise. And we've got this management team that's going to make this all happen. We have extensive experience in medical device development as well as the passion to make this happen. And we invite you to join us as we deliver a cost-effective ENT standard of care to the 350 million people suffering from earwax problems worldwide. Thank you, and please don't use Q-tips.
Okay, well now it's time for the one question. Let's see who should do that. How about, even despite what they said about Q-tips, Robin, how about if you could...
We don't sell Q-tips. That was a very good presentation. That's an interesting problem. So in order to understand your business plan, I would like to understand the market penetration you need and the number of treatments, the number of physicians that you would expect to adopt this treatment in order to break even.
So this is what we had actually put in the appendix because we didn't have time for this. But we, given that it's a primary care physician's office and we definitely believe that it's going to be a difficult distribution, so we hope to capture around 0.5% primary care physicians in the first year of our launch. We already have a lot of key opinion leaders who are already ready to use the product, and with their help we will be able to capture 0.5%. Plus, what I earlier mentioned, that we will be having a strategic relationship with Balshalin, which already exists in the same market. And every year, we will be just ramping up by 2% primary care physicians. This is the US market, and OUS, we hope to capture 0.1% patients every year in Europe and internationally. Given that we have a team which is very international, we also have relationships with the ENT specialists and primary care physicians in the international markets, we hope to leverage upon them and slowly capture the market. We will break even in year 5 with that.
Thank you.
Okay.